Good evening and welcome to the March 24th council meeting. Members of the public were provided with the following numbers to watch and or participate in this open meeting. You can attend in person at the North Dumfries Community Complex. You can attend electronically via Zoom to observe the meeting or to speak to an item on the agenda. You can also watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the Township's YouTube page. Written submitting comments to the closed division were provided to council members and will form part of the public record. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank everyone for joining us at this meeting today. We appreciate your participation. As we come together to serve the community, I ask that we create a welcoming and positive environment for everyone that includes respect, that we listen to each other with care, speak thoughtfully, and engage kindly with one another. Kindness, that we treat everyone, council, staff, and the public with the respect and understanding, and inclusion, that we embrace diverse perspectives and respect each other's opinions. Together, we can make this meeting space one where respect, kindness, and inclusion are at the heart of everything we do. Behavior that is disrespectful, disruptive, aggressive, or intimidating will result in those individuals being asked to the meeting. I'd now like to call the meeting to order, please, and have the approval of the agenda, please, Councilor Austin.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Chili, that council adopt the March 24th, 2025 council agenda as presented with the following addendums. Add 6 pieces of correspondence received for item 16.1, discussion amongst members of council. Notice the motion previously submitted by Councilor Wells on the March 10th agenda regarding a technical study on potential cultural heritage landscape designation.
All those in favor? Yeah. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Mutual people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land, their achievements and their contribution to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. But as you know, these are just words. How we act, how we behave each and every day shows how we truly want Canada to be and share this land with our Indigenous partners. And as I said at the last meeting, we are all immigrants here. We're all descended from immigrants. The ones that were originally here were the Indigenous. And you know what they did? They respected us and embraced us when we first came. They taught us about Thanksgiving. They shared the land with us. And it was through our misguidance in the past that led to all the horrors that have happened. And we, generations later, it's our job to rectify this. But the one thing we have to remember is respect for each and every one of us, whether we agree or not, recognizing that everyone should have a voice and there should be conversation. So let's pause for a moment as we think on it. Is there any disclosure of your interest or your age there? Councilor Tiller.
I'm sorry, I did pass along the document to the clerk, and I don't remember exactly which item it is. It is in regarding to the light post standards.
11.2.4, report number PW 04-2025 LED streetlight conversion phase 2, top post luminaires, ND 2024 CP-RFP.
Right.
So noted, thank you. Adoption of the minutes, please. Councilor Tilley.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Osmer, that council approve the following meeting minutes council meeting minutes dated March 10th, 2025, and emergency council meetings minutes dated March 13th, 2025.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Delegations, Dave Piper from the North Dumfries Historical Preservation Society regarding their annual update to council as required in their memorandum of understanding with the township. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks.
Oh, please. Leave the mouse alone. Up and down. Up and down. Okay. Hi, nice to see you all again. I seem to be here often. Sure you're tired of it, but this is for a different reason today. So I'm here to talk about our Historical Society, Preservation Society. We have an obligation to report to council every year, at least once. And we try to do it at least once every year. So that's what this is today. I know you've got the report and we've looked at it. I'm not going to read it to you. I will highlight a few things if that's okay. There. You know who we are and what we are, so I'm not going to talk about that. You've seen this before. Membership, I'm just going to highlight this. We got incorporated last April. And since the incorporation, our membership has gone back to where we had been historically, about 30, which is good. We're hoping actually to expand that this year. It's one of our focuses is to work on membership for the year, get people more engaged and more aware of what we're doing. But we feel pretty good about it so far this year. Pandemic took a real toll on us, and we've had a lot to recover from. In terms of operations, I'm going to focus on this slide a little bit here. I mentioned we got incorporated in April 24. Our board consists of 10 members. We have 2 vacancies at this point, and our annual meeting is coming up April 29th. Be our first as an incorporated entity. We have a memorandum of understanding with the township. I think that's coming tonight, Andrew, for your discussion and review. We're funded through our own work that we do, fundraising and such, donations and grants. But the space that we use for this purpose is provided by the township. We have the office down the hall. We have 2 vaults in the back. We now have a portable outside. It's a bit of a mishmash, but it's doing the job currently. Certainly not what we foresee for ourselves in the future, but it is working and we do appreciate that. So relationships, we have many. I don't know if you have any questions about those, you can ask them later. Work that we do. So we do store anything that is related to the township. We have some responsibility for 30 years and back. Stuff that we get, which is donated, we store it. We try to preserve it. I know that you're spending money on cleaning the old municipal records, which is really a good thing to do. We like to display. We don't do much. We don't have a lot of space. We don't have a lot of display cases. Andrew and I have had this conversation recently, and there'll be some more coming up on that later. We have an online storage collection. We're working to try to enhance that. And one of the things that we sort of agreed to with Andrew and through the township as well was to seek a more updated, appropriate online software package for cataloging the equipment, not the equipment, but the records. And so that people in the community can access those records easily. You want to know about something, you look it up, boom, there it is. We don't have that. We have a very primitive system. It works, but it's very primitive. And so one of the things that we're working on is, and the township is working on, is finding that software package, purchasing it, licensing it, and then it would be usable for both township purposes and for us. So it would be a shared entity. More about that likely in the MOU. So for new activities, we have regular office hours now. We do have our regular meetings, which is at the end of the month on the Monday, noon hour, last Monday of the month. We've started opening the office 2.5 days a week, a month, I should say. Second Wednesday, it's in the morning, it's open, and on the 4th Wednesday, it's in the afternoon. So this week, starting at 12:30 till 3, it's open. And we have had people come every time. Sometimes just wandering through, sometimes they need an appointment, they want to come and look for something specific. So we're recognizing that there's an interest. And we do through our website get requests regularly, 2 or 3 a month at least, for information that people are looking for about North Dumfries. Some of these things we've already talked about. One of the things we'd like to do this year is to start copying and transcribing some of the oldest records so that people can actually access them more easily. Well, there's a lot of agenda books and minute books, which are fascinating to read, but they're hard to read. So if we can transcribe that, put it online with a new software package, it makes much broader footprint for us in the community. So let's go on to the next one. Our activities this year, you can see we've been busy. One of the things we did for the Air 200 was to make up the 200th anniversary calendar. We sold 350 of them, I think. $20 a pop. So that was some fundraising for us this year. We supported the Air 2000 with their posters and particularly with the stands that they were putting together for that. And we got new donations. You talked to her about the hockey stick and the air train station sign, lots of little things going on. I wanted to just mention the second last bullet here for a minute, the Regional Library Committee. There was a proposal that came a couple of years ago now, or a year long now, that we had inquired with the library first, and through those discussions, a proposal developed to house the archives and museum at the library. There was a lot of potential there, we thought. Something that could be shared, something that would be accessible, something downtown, and all the check boxes marked off. So we made a presentation here. The staff took that information away, and there's a report coming back. We haven't seen it yet. I'm not sure when it's coming, but we're hoping that's coming to take a look at the significance or seriousness of that proposal. In the meantime, the mayor suggested to us that we go to Regional Library Committee, which we did, made a presentation there. I'm not sure it made any impact, frankly, but we made the attempt. This is something we still hold out as a real probability or possibility for us. It's something we really hope that you'll respond to and that the report will come back. We'll give serious consideration to this at some point. There are lots of options for us to have a single site museum-based location, but this is a good one. And you own that building to begin with. So it's, your call really as to who the tenants are. So let's just go on briefly. Projects for this year, you can see all the stuff there. I've mentioned a bunch of them. We'll have our first AGM in April. We are going to take Andrew Taylor's book this year with permission of copyright from the Air News, and we are going to republish that book. That'll be our fundraiser this year. There's interest in it. The books are hard to find. So we're going to take a shot at making that happen. And when it's available, we'll let you know, and there'll be some hopefully sales around this table. And don't forget, memberships are only $20 and you're welcome to all join. All can join. And finally, the revised MOU that will be out here tonight. We have lots of challenges ahead. We sort of felt like we've been sitting on the launch pad for about 12 years, 13 now. We'd like to see ourselves get a little higher up in the sky on this. So we also recognize now that we need some professional help to do this job properly. We're all volunteers. None of us are skilled or trained in the arts of archives, but there is a need for someone to do this and do this properly. And we have never sent to you a budget plan for the fall in all the years we've had an MOU. We will send you one this fall. It will include some element of hiring for the purposes of archives, because you have a legal responsibility to manage them. I don't know if we have anyone dedicated to it specifically. There was one sort of before, but maybe not now. And there might be something here that we can do in partnership that might be beneficial to both. We're going to go after grants now that we are incorporated. We have better opportunities. We're going to expand the volunteer base. And the township's software provision is a key factor and piece of that whole puzzle. So I hope we'll be able to resolve that this year. The host spotted your video for anyone, something that's all about. Anyway, last couple slides. Why support us? I'll just go to the bottom here. You have a legal expectation to do this. That doesn't mean you need to support us, but you need to respond to the archives. Our MOU says we're here to work for you and work on your behalf. So we hope that that partnership will continue. and that we'll support each other in that process. We can't do it alone, to be perfectly frank. Finally, where do we need your support? I'm talking council and there are people around this table. When we come to you for expert support, we hope you'll support that. We hope that you'll assist us in trying to find a dedicated single space to store and preserve and display, whether it's library or something else, and do that within the next year to 2 years. We do think that, last one here, the software is key to a lot of this, because that will really allow us to engage the public more fully than we've ever done before. And I think that's what this is really all about. There's 4 sites on here that we've looked at for permanent homes already. There's been discussion around all of them. There's nothing that's come out of any of them at this point of significance. So that's the presentation that tells you what we've been doing for the year, where we are. We do have money in the bank that we collected and raised for the purposes of archives. And it's substantial. It's certainly not a bag of money, but it's certainly a good wallet size amount. So if there's questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, thanks for letting us be here.
Councilors, any questions? Dave and your group, I want to thank you so much for all you do. I remember when all of that sat in the basement of the old township office. And that was a challenge, yes, that was a challenge. And I thank you, and I think we can work together and hopefully we'll find you an amazing home.
Your support is critical to the success. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, please, Councilor Rowland?
Moved by myself, so by Councilor Williams, that a delegation from David Piper of the North Dumfries Sport Preservation Society to receive with thanks.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next is the consent agenda. Now, the only thing on the consent agenda besides council illumination is, the letters that are the, motions that we received from other municipalities. Anybody wish to touch any of them or speak on any of them? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please, Councilor Williams?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Williams, that the following reports as listed on the March 24, 2025 consent agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. 10.1.1 report number bin-07-2025, 2024 council remuneration and expenses. And that the following information items as listed in the March 24, 2025 consent agenda be received. 10.2.1. A, resolutions received from the city of Sarnia regarding carbon tax. B, resolution received from Patrick Brown, Mayor Brand, regarding the Stand for Canada campaign. C, resolution received from Bradford West Gwillimbury regarding a motion to request landlord tenant reform. D, resolution received from the municipality of East Paris regarding trade barriers. E, resolution received from the town of Amaranth regarding buy local and Canadian. F, resolution received from the town of Woolwich regarding rural school zone speed limits. And G, resolution received from the town of Woolwich Bridge regarding resolution of support for aggregate extraction property costs for 2025 taxation year.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. A couple of the letters that were here regarding, what times are the rental properties, CEO McNeil is working on that, as well as the one to do with, Canada. So, yeah, CEO McNeil in the future will be that forward. So next we have the grant applications, the report on the grant applications. Are there any questions in regards to grant applications? Councilor Terry.
Thank you. I just wanted to, the treasurer did send an email to Councilor Rowland and myself today, clarifying about Langs and being part of an MOU now instead of the application process. Does that, sorry, just to clarify through you, Mayor, to the treasurer, is that now, does that now mean that they're receiving, Sandra, sorry, did they now receive that mean that they're receiving some sort of funding, or is it something else? Just so I understand.
See anything?
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Tilly. Council may recall as part of the 2025 operating budget, we put aside it's $35,000 in the base budget to deal with, as a first phase, these programming opportunities. Ms. Winters and I are working with leadership team from Langs to finalize that draft agreement that talk about things such as formal and informal programming opportunities and the youth drop-in center here at the NPCC. Council may also recall in the fall of 2024, we applied to the GROW component of Ontario Trillium funding for matching dollars, both capital and operating, to accelerate the phase in of that program through Langs. So there is a funding stream. It's targeted initially in its initial years toward our youth. And we are looking at having it as a multi-year program. And in the mid to back years of that agreement, it will expand into the seniors programming and outreach.
Thank you, Stephen. So if no further question, Councillor Austin, the motion, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Wilms, that report number FIN 06-2025 be received and that council authorize the Treasurer Director of Corporate Services to direct grant allocations for 2025, which totals 36,940 to the listed groups and organizations as recommended by the Community Grant Working Group as follows. Porch Light 4,000, Air Pride 750, Air First Scouts 1550, Air Minor Softball 1625, Air Dumfries Pipe Band 4,500, Porch Fest 830, Here to There Market 3,200, Air Community Theater Group 16,700, Kiwanis 1,500, and North Dumfries School Fair Committee $2,285.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Right, next is the items for discussion, items that take the most from the consent agenda, we've done the grants. Report number clerk 06-2025, alternative voting methods for the 2026 municipal and school board elections. Have any questions? Motion, Councillor Tilly, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Ossner, that report number CLK 06-2025 be received and the council approved the use of hybrid voting methods such as using internet and paper ballots with vote tabulation equipment as the voting method for the 2026 municipal election, and that council approved a home vote program as an alternative voting method for electors who are unable to leave their home due to illness, injury, or disability for the 2026 municipal election, and that IE bylaw to authorize alternate voting methods for the 2026 municipal and school board election be presented at the April 14th, 2025 council meeting for enactment.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, the automatic speed enforcement, administrative penalty, monetary penalty system. Any questions, councillors? Seeing none, Councillor Wilms, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Tilly, that report number BW-03-2025 be received, and that council adopt a turnkey operation of an automated speed enforcement ASC program as a third-year pilot project with Global Traffic Group Limited in concert with the delivery of the administrative monetary penalty system AMPS to the Township of ESSA for their joint processing center as it pertains to various local roads situated within the township. That the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents or contracts with Global Traffic Group Limited and the Township of ESSA with respect to the pilot project for the AFC and AMPS program. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents or contracts with the Ministry of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Transportation with respect to the operation and delivery of the AFC and our AMPS programs. And that staff return to council with a report on candidate local roads for consideration as community safety zones in the spring of 2025 as a precursor to implement the automated speed enforcement pilot program. And that the treasurer establish a reserve account, AFC AMPS, and that any revenues paid to the township through the pilot project be transferred to the named reserve account. The proceeds in the AFC AMPS reserve account will be utilized to fund future road safety initiatives, traffic calming projects, and road rehabilitation projects as part of the annual budget process.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. On 11.2.4, report on the PW 04/2025 LED streetlight conversion phase 2. Council, Tilly, yes.
It's being totally. Okay.
Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please, Council Roman?
Moved by myself, so by Councilor Oster, that report number PW 04/2025 be received and that council award the LED streetlight conversion phase 2 top post luminaires to TM3 in the amount of $163,660.79 inclusive of HST, and the council approved a project in contingency of $30,000 inclusive of HST, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents associated with this agreement.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And staff will get, Council Tilly, please. Thank you.
It's quieter in here.
And next is, 11.2.5, report number CAO 07/2025, extension and renewal of memorandum of understanding between the Township of North Dumfries and the North Dumfries Historical Preservation System. Are there any questions or comments? Can I have the motion, please, Councilor Austin?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, that report number CAO 07/2025 be received and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the renewal and extension of the memorandum of understanding with the North Dumfries Historical Preservation Society for a 3-year period through to March 31st, 2028. And that staff be directed to prepare for approval at the April 14th, 2025 council meeting, a bylaw to renew the role of the North Dumfries Historical Society as the archivist for the township through to March 31st, 2028.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. So next is an item that came to me, and it's a tree planting partnership with Trees for Life. So the motion here reads that we just accept the correspondence. The second one is that council directs staff to reach out to Trees for Life to explore opportunities and how this program can be applied to the town of North Dumfries. Is there any questions or comments? And Councilor Tilly, you have the motion.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Roman, that the correspondence received from the Trees for Life be received, and the council directs staff to reach out to Trees of Life to explore opportunities on how this program can be applied to the township of North Dumfries.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
So
Yes, oh, sorry.
it's okay.
Councilor Austin.
It's more of that's the actual Mark Cullen. That sign out like Mark Cullen.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's it. Okay. Cullen Gardens.
Okay, and now we're going to discuss the notice of motion. Discussion among members of council. Notice of motion previously submitted by Councilor Williams on March 10th agenda regarding the technical study on potential cultural heritage landscape designations. Before we can begin the discussion, I'm going to second before the motion. Councilor Tilly is seconding the motion. Also, I'd like to note that motions are usually not put on public for debate, especially in this one. This is to discuss whether we go through with the study. That's all we're discussing tonight. Not on what anything is going to happen or anything else. It's whether we move forward. And therefore, because we could spend all night debating the issue, but that won't give us any information. The study will give us the data and say, yes, this makes sense, or no, it doesn't make sense. If we decide to want to do the data. Now, councilors, do you have any questions or comments? Councilor Reynolds?
May I proceed with a small presentation before?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Just before we start the discussion, I just wanted to kind of frame it with, just some pictures of the area itself, just to kind of underscore once again. Just to underscore once again, just why this area. So cultural heritage landscapes, they're defined geographical areas. They're highly valued areas. And what the intent of such a landscape, if we decide to go through with it, and as the mayor said, this is just the beginnings of the process. And we protect all these things in a way, and the technical study itself that I'm proposing will allow us to define what elements of this heritage landscape we want to protect and how we're going to protect them. So if you go to slide 2, it's just showing the area. I know it looks like a very large area, but within it there is, and if you go to slide 3, which is the close up, you can see that there is quite a lot of heritage homes are listed and designated in the area. And there's also a lot of conservation areas and another variety of forested areas. And then it's bounded by the Grand River on the one side. So the idea is, slide 3. So slide 4. So this is a picture of Bannister Lake. And so that is one of the natural heritage sites in this area. A lot of the natural heritage sites in this area are already protected by various organizations. A cultural heritage landscape would provide a more holistic approach to to the preservation opportunities of this landscape. So, and will also allow us as North Dumfries to also provide our input on what's important to us, and not just important to the region and important to it just allows us to also provide that. So we don't have this piecemeal approach. Slide next time. So here's just one of the heritage homes in the area. You can see there's so many examples of these, but they're just real representations of hopes and dreams of past generations. And in their natural landscape, as many of them are untouched, they just are testimonies of the work that many people have done through the ages. Next slide. And this just, again, it just shows, I picked this picture because it really just shows we're not protecting just the house itself, but we're also protecting the context in which it sits. The next slide. So I would also like to draw attention to the fact that we are current caretakers of this land, and we do have a duty to consider the First Nations who have come before us. So I wanted to just quote a little bit from the letter of support from the Six Nations of the Grand River, that this is a highly valued area around the Southern Forest, and it has been used by First Nations both contemporarily and since time immemorial, and would benefit from a focused study on the cultural significance of this land area. And next slide. So continuing with our letter, since all North Dumfries current heritage designation appears to be for settler constructed buildings and infrastructure, this motion is a real step forward in recognizing heritage important to First Nations. I'm grateful for their support, and we know that this small technical study is a small but meaningful and tangible step on our path to reconciliation. Next slide. So this is a picture that shows the Grand River Valley, and it really is a timeless scene of rolling hills descending to the heritage river that bounds this area. You can see so well from this picture how the landscape was shaped eons ago by glacial activity. Vistas like this provide people, not just us, but many of us, to just breathe fresh air, remember the things that really matter. And I think this next one's the last slide. So here we have an abundance of natural landscapes throughout our area, and they connect us to the past, they connect us to each other. And right now, these landscapes are under pressure for development. Tonight, I'm presenting council with an opportunity for us to really decide what, where, and how we want to develop our natural resources in our community in a way that best protects the best of North Dumfries. We have a duty, not just to our past and present, but also the folks who will live in North Dumfries in the future, that they too can connect with the environment around them. And a technical study in this area shows a real commitment into the natural landscapes in North Dumfries. My hope is that with council support, we proceed with a technical study in this location and also work with our community to identify other areas in North Dumfries that could benefit from a similar approach. I think the time is right. We have a lot of support. The results for this study will naturally feed into the work underway to update our official plan. And so I'm hoping for support for this motion. And that's, I just want to say as well that I'm not necessarily married to the wording of the motion, but I am hoping that the general intent of the motion, which is to proceed with a technical study in this area, will never, and in a timely fashion, will be honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Then, can you read the motion so we can discuss the points? Thank you.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Tilly, whereas the Cultural Heritage Impact Assessment GIA for the West Edworthy Pit application identified numerous heritage and landscape elements of significance. And whereas the Heritage Advisory Committee, upon reviewing the West Edworthy Pit application, recommended additional study of the surrounding area. And whereas the scope GIA of 1699 Straugs Road further identified significant cultural heritage features within the proposed area. And whereas various experts in cultural heritage preservation have recognized the significance of this landscape. And whereas numerous properties within the proposed area are designated or listed as heritage properties in the Township of North Dumfries inventory of buildings of architectural and historical significance. Be resolved, the council directs staff to collaborate with heritage experts to undertake a technical study on the proposed area bounded by Wrigley Road to Dumfries Road, Elks Road to Scroggs Road, West River Road to Beaky Road, and Beaky Road to Scroggs Road, to assess the feasibility and value of designating this area as a formal cultural heritage landscape, and be it further resolved that staff report back to council with the findings of the technical study within 4 months for further discussion and consideration.
Councilor, is there any questions? Councilor Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, I've been thinking a lot about this, since Councilor Williams brought it up. So I think this is a good thing to investigate, hoping that through our study, we find out, from the homeowners and residents that have properties there, how they feel about it, how they feel it's going to affect their property values, if they do any renovations, etc., resale, all those things that you know, residents that get on in age will be thinking about, possibly. Also, how it's going to affect our dealings with gravel pits and vice versa, and the OLT. I don't want to get us into a situation where we're going to get into a taxpayer fight. So we have to see how that affects them, and the study will bring all that out. But I want to hear from all the residents as to why they do or do not want this. Because it's an education for me. I'm sure it's an education for all of us. We got to understand the pros and cons and how the people within these boundaries feel about this and how strongly they feel about it. And that's what I want to learn from the study. And if it works in the best interest of our residents, then so be it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Norman, go ahead.
Madam Mayor. So in the previous term of council, we did discuss cultural heritage landscapes. It came up in March of 2019. At that time, we were looking at about a dozen different potential cultural heritage landscapes, of which Grand River Valley was one of the candidate sites. At that time, one of the key things we discussed with the previous council was there needs to be public consultation to identify these candidate sites. So I'm a little hesitant about choosing a site arbitrarily. I think we should be looking at all the sites. I think we should have perhaps a staff report or perhaps in consultation with the Heritage Committee. There should be some sort of due diligence done to identify the sites, and council should be the one deciding which of these 12 sites or more potentially that we should investigate. Because one of the things that's unknown right now is the cost. What are the costs of these studies? Do we want to choose one area over other areas? the reality is that we're facing growth and we're facing expansion pressures across the entire township. So whether it's along Sprague's Road pressure to have gravel pits, to develop gravel pits, whether it's downtown air to tear down buildings and build high rises, whether it's, well, not high rises, but 6-story buildings. Whether it's in Branston to build subdivisions or Roseville to build subdivisions, we have to look at all these different opportunities and different issues that we have to face. And I think we should be looking at the entire township as a whole and then decide which sites. And I think as council, we should make that decision. I don't think we should be forced upon us.
Councillor Williams.
So, if I may reply to something that Councillor Roman said, thank you, Mayor. I don't think this is arbitrary. First of all, we did take a careful look at this. I did take a careful look at this area. It is a defined area, as mentioned before. It has been mentioned in various other heritage reports as well. It is an area that has received a lot of, as my motion says, a lot of attention in the past. And I think there is urgency to this particular area. I am not opposed as to amend this motion to also include further study from staff. But I think we can do that and at the same time proceed with looking at the work that needs to be done for this area. And this could perhaps be the model that we also adopt for further areas. So that I'd like to mention as well. And absolutely we need to consider costs. So that perhaps there's some things that need to happen to make sure that this all happens well and then we do it thoughtfully. And I'm not proposing we just jump in and not be thoughtful, but I think there's enough here that it does make sense to move forward with this application. At least I hope.
Thank you, Councillor. So anyone suggest different wording? I think we were talking about the last paragraph. Be it resolved the council direct staff to collaborate with the heritage experts. But staff to maybe find more information and then collaborate. I'm also concerned about the time frame. Councillor Rose, you put in, did you put in 4 months? Is that enough time? I don't know how long a study like this takes. I know when we did the Greenfield, what was that, a year? It was a year to do the Greenfield Road study.
So if I may understand, was that to do the study or was that to do the whole process and have a district created?
I think it was just the study.
I'm perfectly fine with extending to what is reasonable. Like I'm okay if we go and 6-8 months and we need to do the proper study. And if it requires more time than 4 months, then let's take more time than 4 months.
So I think the time frame out entirely because the experts come in then. That's a lot of territory to ask them to do as well. So if we just took the time frame out and we left it to the experts, would you be willing to do that?
Would it be okay to say within a reasonable time frame or within?
Perfect. I don't know what reasonable is, but that sounds great to me. Councillor Roman.
What about the public input part of that?
That was, I assume will be part of the process because it was a part of the Greenfield Road and there was multiple public meetings, multiple. And I believe people had to sign on to it on the Greenfield Road.
For conservation?
Yeah, so they had to agree to it, so you had to sign a contract saying you agreed with it. So there would be multiple consultations. CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, maybe to assist members of council. I've had this previous conversation with Councillor Williams after she tabled the notice of motion that may assist other members of council. So if council embraces the principle of looking at this as a study area for a potential cultural heritage landscape study, staff would prepare draft terms of reference, and we would do 2 things. Initially, one would be to take the draft terms of reference to the Heritage Advisory Committee for their input and review. And the committee, part of their mandate, has the ability to actually host information meetings. So the committee, not having a discussion yet with the chair, but the committee could have discussions with the broader community about the draft terms of reference and what the hope is in terms of deliverables and expectations. Everyone has to understand to actually have an effective cultural heritage landscape. You actually need to put this into your official plan. So this is like a background document that refers to all truth the boundaries, because this is a study area, not necessarily what the future boundaries could be. As I shared with Councilor Williams, coming through the technical review, you actually may find there's two different cultural landscapes within the boundary of the study area, not knowing yet what the outcomes are going to be. You would then, if, let's just pretend there's one cultural heritage landscape area, it's generally within the boundaries that have been mapped in the resolution. You would identify what are those features, what makes this area unique, and what are you trying to conserve under the implementation of a future cultural heritage landscape. And every landscape will have a different set of drivers, because no two settings are the same. That overlay designation in terms of the boundary forms a schedule within your official plan, and then specific, let's just call this landscape one. You would have policies that are specific to landscape one that would inform future, whether it be development applications filed under the Planning Act. If there was a road undertaking, or a regional road, right, or even our road. So if you're ever looking at rebuilding a road, adding more capacity to a road through additional lanes or widenings of the road, they would go through the lens of the cultural heritage landscape, as well as any new development. And depending upon how far those policies would be, it could even be existing lots of record that don't actually have a Planning Act application, but actually may have a building permit or a site alteration. Not all cultural heritage landscape may go to that level, but not knowing yet what the merits are of the area and what you're trying to conserve, it could go that far. If you were to adopt the principles, then you would go through the statutory public meeting process to introduce the amendment to the official plan to have both the mapping and the policies advanced. And that decision, if it's a local decision, in other words, you're not seeking provincial approval, it's now council wants to be the decision-making body, that is subject to referral to the Ontario Land Tribunal for an appeal. If a person or organization participates in the public meeting process. Now, that's at the back end of the process. There's a lot of work to be done. I mentioned about bringing it to the Heritage Advisory Committee, getting their first vetting. One of the recommendations I would have is that they embark upon some discussions with the committee of interest to make sure there's balance and perspective in terms of what we're trying to achieve from the study. The other would be staff is already engaging First Nations. And we have 2 First Nation communities that we engage, 6 Nations in the Grand River and Mississaugas on the Credit. We've already started that with our new official plan. We're working on ground terms of reference on the overall official plan, and we've already opened the door for consultation and their support for our study parameters on the broader official plan update, and that was referenced in the 6 Nations letter on your addendum agenda package. So we would also consult with them because their ask is that we just don't look at what they refer to as the settlers' change to the landscape as we know it today. And they want to talk about what happened there before Europeans occupied this district. And so they may bring in information such as trading routes, settlement areas, which could have been temporary hunting venues. All of that information will also then potentially feed into the study and may drive one or more areas to either support creating the cultural heritage landscape or informing policies that would govern then future development or redevelopment opportunities that might emerge in future years. So then we would bring back a report to council, and that would have not only now called the truth in terms of reference to talk about the study, what we hope to achieve through the study, what our expectations are in terms of future deliverables. But I would also have then also a program in terms of all this, the timeline to deliver the study, as well as a budget to deliver, because right now we have not set aside funds in the 2025 budget to complete the study. There are some vehicles that are available to council to fund the study, but I haven't got an actual budget allowance, so that would be part of that reporting, as well as terms of reference to make sure that council is comfortable with scope and intent. It's consistent with the notice of motion that we have in front of us. And then council will buy that collection, and then we go to the marketplace to retain an appropriately qualified consultant to undertake that study. And then through that study, there will be further community engagement and consultation because of a wide range of people that will have interest in this study, both inside and outside the geographic area of the study boundary, including our peers, the two First Nations communities measures.
Councillor Tilly.
I know this is a premature question, but it's just something to ask because it's just trying to be a good steward. Do we have any kind of budgeted, any idea of what sort of cost excluding the study that this would look into, we would be looking at to do this? Is this just basically some staff time and some investigation that would require that we actually did the study, or would there be additional costs at the time?
So, Madam Mayor, you're asking us to do like a precursor, does the study areas map through the notice of motion to have merits to be assessed as a potential cultural heritage landscape? Is that what you're asking of us? Because if you are, that work was actually done by the township in consultation with the Heritage Advisory Committee in 2018 and 2019, which is what Councillor Rowland referenced. In his discussions a few moments ago. And I'm going to remember, I apologize. It was either 12 or 14 different geographic areas across all 4 wards that we identified as potential sites. This area happened to be one of, we refer to as the Grand River corridor, but it's largely the boundaries that were in this notice of motion.
Thank you. It's 100% ignorance at this point. I'm just not understanding the entire process, so I'm trying to understand it better. So thank you for explaining that, and I appreciate Dr. Roman's input so far. I just wanted to try and understand it a little bit better at this point. That's all.
Councillor Rossi.
Just one quick question through you to CEO McNeely. If we have an area where a regional road, because you referenced regional roads like Sprague roads, etc., do we have to? Does the region have to engage in the study in order, because their regional road goes through there? And do we run into the same sort of thing we run into them with a lot of times where they move at a snail's pace, or they don't decide to do something that we want done?
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Oster. I think in this example, the region corporately would look upon it favorably. And I say that only because the region in the year 2011 did their scenic roads policy. Excuse me. That policy affected regional roads when they were either to be constructed or reconstructed in certain corridors. And Sprague's Road corridor was identified in that regional policy as a high scenic threat. So they looked only really at one aspect, and that was the views and vistas, as well as the heritage forms that framed the Sprague's Road corridor. So I don't see this being something that they would oppose. I don't see this being something that they would interfere with. Certainly, they are a landowner, albeit of a different form. And so they would be part of the engagement process, and they would be having comments. But this is something I think they would be supportive of, because it actually builds upon some early work that they did in 2011 and actually takes it to the next level, where it now links, lack of a better term, the road, its form and function, to the broader context in which the road resides. Councillor Wilms quite correctly said, there are a whole series of features or elements that each have their own designation that govern how land use would occur. So we have significant blocks of environmental block features. But it looks at the feature in isolation. It doesn't knit it to the adjacent countryside lands. And the intent of a cultural heritage landscape is to try and knit all of these elements that are unique to that geographic area. And what are you trying to conserve spatially across the bigger area and not necessarily the singular aspect.
Thank you.
Councilor Longman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's one distinction I think we need to discuss, perhaps staff with clarification, but a conservation district, Part 5 designation on the Heritage Act is very different than a cultural heritage landscape. Cultural heritage landscape is a planning act. It's a portion of the planning act. So there's different provisions, different restrictions. So it's been implied that if we have CHLs in place, then all development will stop, or we can't develop in these areas. But I think staff just need to clarify exactly what the protections are, what the restrictions are in the CHL.
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Rowland, or expand upon Councilor Rowland's query. Yes, they are both very different. The Part 5 designation under the Ontario Heritage Act identifies a geographic area as a conservation district. And generally speaking, not exclusively, but you're largely looking at a built form that dominates that area, and you're trying to conserve, protect that built form. Now, there could be environmental settings, road context that reinforces that, but it's largely administered through the Heritage Act and specifically at a lot level through a building permit process. And so if someone comes in and dealt with earlier this year, someone sought permission to change the siding on their residence, and there was a color palette material. You actually had to approve the change consistent with the guidelines of the conservation district, and that allowed the CBO, chief building official, sorry, to be able to issue a permit for that physical change. Whereas the conservation heritage landscape is referenced in the Ontario Heritage Act, but it actually flows largely out of the provincial planning statement. The provincial planning statement encourages municipalities to establish cultural heritage landscapes, defines what a cultural heritage landscape is, and the intent is where appropriately identified and carried into your official plan, try and conserve whatever the element is that's unique to that geographic area. That's where you start putting your policies or scrapped or scripted specific to that landscape area. It informs review of future planning act applications, but you can actually go beyond that. Talk about things like site alteration, road reconstruction, road rebuilding, public works undertakings, right down to changes to existing built form. In terms of what we would deal with in terms of additions or renovations or new building. The mechanism is through the planning act for your efficient plan. The efficient plan policies are appealable to the Ontario Land Tribunal if council is the decision maker. If council defers to and have the province deal with the amendment, then the minister is the decision making entity, and there's no appeal of the minister's decision. That's also a difference between the Ontario Heritage Act versus the Planning Act process. The outcome, in terms of how we would assess change, would largely be driven by a cultural heritage impact assessment. We would actually have to modify our terms of reference that we currently utilize for our CHIs and say where there's a cultural heritage landscape. And then we put whatever our requirements are in terms of minimum standards, and then you would refer to the specific policies of that individual landscape feature to inform what that cultural heritage landscape study will drill down to, how it will assess. And the intent is to protect the feature, serve the feature. That could be through things like mitigation. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an outright stop or prohibition. Excuse me. So it can look at mitigation strategies, especially if the activity is deemed to be something on an interim basis, not necessarily a permanent end land use activity.
Councillor Austin.
Through you to see it, McKinney. So as an example, downtown air would be a heritage district, whereas Bannister Lake would be a cultural heritage landscape.
Madam Mayor, through Councillor Oster, actually, if I live in downtown area, you can do it either way. Council, through the Heritage Advisory Committee, actually looked at creating a conservation district for downtown area. When the committee worked through the affected landowners, you found that you did not have the support of the landowners to actually create a heritage district as administered in Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The downtown area and some of the older resident neighborhoods and Fremont, so portions of Piper Street, Manly, Hall, McDonald, form part of that downtown setting. And it actually was identified as one of the key cultural heritage landscape areas that should be studied further with the intent of elevating it to an actually formally designated area with its own unique policies. And back in 2019, that's what council recommended, that to do things properly, focus. At that time, council was facing development and redevelopment applications either in the downtown or at the edges of the downtown in the residential areas. And council was looking at CHL, cultural heritage landscape opportunity, as one vehicle to assist or inform those future development or redevelopment initiatives. So you could have done the downtown one of two different ways. There's no right or wrong way, but there's two different instruments, two different processes.
So if I may see over McNeely, here's so could we add the downtown area into this?
So yeah, so you might want to do it in its own separate motion.
Okay,
What I would ask the council entertain, and it would require, this would be introduced as a friendly amendment, and so the mover would actually have to agree to it. Okay, is in the last recital where it talks about the findings of the technical study be returned back to council for 4 months' time. If we could entertain that staff report back to council with an update on draft terms of reference following engagement with the public, the Heritage Advisory Committee, and First Nation and Indigenous communities. Consideration of next steps. And it would be my intent to be back here in 3 to 4 months' time after going through those processes of that consultation. The Heritage Advisory Committee residents and the 2 First Nations.
so it's gonna be it further resolved, the staff report back to council with the update as you make the changes there, Ashley. And we're taking out, and findings of this, and the technical study in 4 months' time will be taken out, because I don't think 4 months' time is going to do it. But we need to change that out.
So if the mover is comfortable with that, that is a friendly amendment. And minutes would just reflect the mover of the notice of motion accepts modification. And then if that occurs, then council can vote on the amended motion that's in front of you.
Can you read that actually for all of us, and then we will ask the mover in the second.
And further resolved that staff report back to council with draft terms of reference following engagement with the public, the Heritage Advisory Committee and First Nations for next steps within 4 months for further discussion and consideration.
Council Williams, are you okay with that?
So I'm just kind of a little bit confused because there seems to be all kinds of, so I just want to make sure I clarify. With this draft of reference, are we specifically still talking about the area that's within my motion, or are we now talking about more areas?
No,
That-
that's the areas in the motion.
Okay, and the amendment would allow for draft terms of reference for a technical study to be created.
Correct.
Does it, does that go against the first part of the motion where it said be resolved, the council or staff power the heritage for experts to undertake a technical study?
See, I'm
So what the last motion would do is it would direct staff to start that process, of crafting terms of reference, and engaging in consultation locally to make sure that the concerns, issues, breadth of the analysis is encompassing. And then council would weigh in with that consultation and crafting being undertaken. And then council's comfortable with the terms of reference, we would go to the marketplace. It is specific to the study area, which is the balance of your notice of motion. We're just providing some context as what this initial steps will be before we embark upon a study. And if I understand the scope of work, then I can also bring same time a draft budget, so that council can allocate the funds. So that if we're successful in retaining a consultant to actually do the study, assistant would be the council adopt the terms of reference, the monies are there to deliver upon the program.
Ashley, can you start with be it resolved to read that paragraph and the paragraph afterwards? Because I wonder if they should switch positions, but we'll see after.
Be it resolved that council directs staff to collaborate with heritage experts to undertake a technical study on the proposed area bounded by Wrigley Road to Dumfries Road, Alps Road to Sprague's Road, West River Road to Beaky Road, and Beaky Road to Sprague's Road, to assess the feasibility and value of designating this area as a formal cultural heritage landscape. And be it further resolved that staff report back to council with draft terms of reference following engagement with the public, Heritage Advisory Committee and First Nations for next steps within 4 months for further discussion and consideration.
So do you see what I'm saying, CEO, is that should come first, where staff do the consultation, and then the last paragraph should be the final result? Or is it irrelevant?
To be on the order sequencing is
Yeah.
immaterial. I just want to make sure council has clear direction, what's expected of staff to inform the next steps related to the undertaking of a study within the boundaries of the Grand River Corridor.
You okay with that, Council Runs?
Yes, I think I'm okay with that friendly amendment. I do have a question through you to Councilwoman, if I may.
Go ahead.
Is there a further amendment required, or should we consider a further amendment to also bring back the previous study from former council so that we can be more comprehensive and not just do one?
Council Runs?
But I think that if the terms of reference are satisfactory and they work out, then you should apply that template with future CHL type of vote. So I don't think at this point in time it's necessary to do that, but I do want to make sure that council's aware that this will open up a discussion about 12 or 14 more CHLs. So if we're going to move forward with one, then I'm going to be back here in the future saying there's a dozen more at least that we're going to want to talk about.
Okay, Council Tilly?
Just because you did mention it, Councilor Roman, in the map, the larger map that we were given for the agenda package is using the area that Councilor Wilms indicated there. is there multiple locations within her area there, or was there, and is there other, like 11 more areas? Just so I can even get understanding, because I've never seen the topic you're discussing.
Councilor Roman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the report from 2019 that I have here in front of me talks about the Grand River Valley's been one, and this is, whether it's exact same boundaries as Council Williams is proposing or not, I'm not sure, but it was mentioned. There's also downtown area. There's also, the old, the Piper Street, Mythvale area. There's Jedburgh area. Then there's Lockheed Road at Seaton Road. There's Sheffield Road, Clyde, Greenfield, we have the old Greenfield Conservation District, but also Greenfield going the other way. Branchton, Roseville, respectively, Roseville, Morrison Road, Reedsville, and the Rare Cherville Reserve Lands. So already, without even trying very hard, we already hit 12 separate areas in addition to what Council Williams is talking about.
Councilor Williams.
And just to know that it is not uncommon for a township to have many cultural heritage landscapes. The town of Caledon has at least 10 or something like that, one works, so.
I think Councilor Roman makes a good point that we will start with this one and see as sees fit. Can you put off the motions, please? One for Councilor Roman, one for me. Thank you. While she's doing that, how will people be notified of these different meetings and things that they can come and be involved in? And we get their concerns here on the hearing?
So typically, we would send by a regular mail to all registered landowners that have the study boundaries for having information team. There would also be broader postings through newspaper and or news blast and or social media.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Can I have the motion, please, Councilor Williams?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Tilly, whereas the Cultural Heritage Impact Assessment (CHIA) for the West Edworthy Pit application identified numerous heritage and landscape elements of significance. And whereas the Heritage Advisory Committee, upon reviewing the West Edworthy Pit application, recommended additional study of the surrounding area. And whereas the scope CHIA for 1699 Sproggs Road further identified significant cultural heritage features within the proposed area. And whereas various experts in cultural heritage preservation have recognized the significance of this landscape. And whereas numerous properties within the proposed areas are designated or listed as heritage properties in the Township of North Dumfries inventory of buildings, architectural and historical significance. Be it resolved that council directs staff to collaborate with heritage experts to undertake a technical study on the proposed area bounded by Wrigley Road to Dumfries Road, Elms Road to Spraggs Road, West River Road to Beaky Road, and Beaky Road to Spraggs Road to assess the feasibility and value of designating this area as a formal cultural heritage landscape. And be it further resolved that staff report back to council with draft terms of reference while engagement with the Public Heritage Advisory Committee and First Nations for next steps within 4 months for further discussion and consideration.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Good discussion, Councilor. Next, we have the reading of the bylaws. Councilor Williams, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Tilly, that the following bylaws be read a first and second time. Bylaw number 3551-25. Being a bylaw to appoint members to the steering committee for the Community Assessment Review Study, NBCC Twin Path Fundraising and Sponsorship Program, and bylaw number 3552-25. Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on March 24, 2025.
All those in favor? Good, thank you. Councilor Roman, please.
Moved by myself, Council Williams, that bylaws number 3551-25 and 3552-25 be read a third and final time, be signed and sealed by the chair.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Councilor Osmer, please. See you get all the adjournments.
So moved by myself, seconded by Council Tilly, that whereas business before this council meeting has been completed at 7:14 PM and be it resolved that this meeting adjourned.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you.